right. So thank you for having me, by the way. This is a really awesome experience.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
So the dream that I had, it actually happened a few years ago, but it's a dream that's kind of stuck with me for a long time. And it's a bit of a wild one. But
Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we are very privileged to have another content creator, our friend Robert Grant, who is a registered clinical counselor, and he's got a lot of contacts out there. They're all going to be in the description below, but I'll just shout them out too, at Probably Wrong About Everything on Instagram, and
right.
The podcast on iTunes, Spotify, all over the place is I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. And there's also probablywrong.ca. And
that's our blog, yeah.
On the blog. And then we can also throw some support his way on Patreon. So did I miss anything there, or did I say it all correctly?
That was awesome.
Okay.
Better than I could have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So as per my usual process, I'm going to shut up, and our friend Robert's going to share his dream, and then we'll see what we can do with it. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So thank you for having me, by the way. This is a really awesome experience.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
So the dream that I had, it actually happened a few years ago, but it's a dream that's kind of stuck with me for a long time. And it's a bit of a wild one. But anyway, so it's taking place, and it's very sci-fi. So anyways, I'm there with my dad and my brother, and we're it's like the end of the world, and there's a spaceship kind of thing, and we're standing outside of it, and all these like robots, cybernetic zombies are like coming out of the ground, and we're like battling them all together. And it was just like it was a weird combination, this dream, of the Terminator and like a family sitcom or something. Like, it wasn't scary, it was like the three of us who have all kind of, we've never really been in the same room together much, kind of thing. We had all teamed against a common kind of enemy, I guess. And that was these cybernetic robots. And when I woke up, I was like, it was one of those dreams that was like, oh man, it's too bad that wasn't real. I was having a really good time.
Okay, that's the broad strokes of the dream, just kind of.
Yeah. So
okay.
So that's and then because sometimes when I dream, it feels like it's so much is happening in such a short period of time, right? There wasn't like the multiple layers like in the film Inception when they keep going into the other rooms or whatever.
Yeah.
This is the part of it that stuck out to me that I want to focus on of the dream.
Sure. So this was maybe a shorter chunk of a longer section of the dream, or a longer dream in general.
This is the part that, this is the part that I remember the most. And this is a pretty drawn out sort of skirmish that we were happening.
Okay.
And it was almost like, the scene in Heat when they're the bank robbery or whatever, and they're like, get to the van. It was very intense, this battle, but at the same time it was like it was enjoyable. Now I should add that my father's been passed. I was 14 when he passed away, so this dream occurred many years since his passing. And my brother, he's my half brother, and I love him very much. We weren't exactly the closest at the time, and we're not the closest, but I mean, like I say, I love him, and he's very much in my life, but we just don't, like, we're not the same person. We're very different, him and I, right? But here we were, we had a common purpose, and that was fighting off this threat, right?
For sure. Yeah. No, I understand that too. It's like I tend to be a very solitary person, so I love my family dearly. And if they're watching this, hi Mom, But we just see each other very little. And it's not because we don't care. It's just that's kind of who we are in ways. I mean, my parents probably want to see us, my brother and I, more, but none of us spend a whole lot of time together. We kind of do our own thing. And then every once in a while we remember, hey, I've got family out there. Maybe I should just reach out and say hello once in a while. So stay in touch.
Yeah.
So, okay. So to keep us on track for your limited time, we've gone through just kind of the broad strokes of the first or of the section you want to look at. And then what I do in my process is now go back through and try and see it more clearly in my head, get a little more detail. And we've got a cat that joined us, and he's going to try not to turn off the recording. Hi, Cece.
That is awesome.
There he is. Yeah, we've got value added.
Everybody needs a mascot.
Value added content. I got a couple of them. Too many cats. Shh. So the very first thing you remember from this particular section, just before we get there, was there a jump cut involved before this section started? Like in the immediately previous section of the dream, did something happen right before you're outside the spaceship?
I really felt like it was like a snap. Like I felt like it was the room that I'd entered in that dream. Like it was the next room I'd entered. Yeah,
that happens very commonly. There are these kind of jump cuts. Your brain finishes working on one idea, and this is why I'm asking: is that idea will tend to then trigger the next in a way, or is related to it? It's like, now that you finish processing that, here's the next thing you need to see. So I was wondering if something happened just immediately before the jump cut to the spaceship. Do you remember where you were at that moment right before? May not be a fresh memory from so long ago.
I think if I was to like. The way that you're describing dreams, it's making me think about how films used to be made and how they would roll the cuts, they'd cut it, and then they would literally just tape it on together, right?
Yeah.
That, these are what dreams are more kind of like that, right? Versus this weird meshing, this weird mosaic. It was like, you cut this and you tape it onto that. So another dream that I would often have is, and again, because this one happened a few years ago, I don't know if I'm cutting it properly with the footage of that same night. But wherever this footage is coming from, I'd often have a dream that my dad was alive again and that we were hanging out. And then, because he died of lung cancer. Gotcha. So, but then it's like he didn't die. It was like, it was a surprise. I was in Mexico for a few years and you're like, oh man, you wasted so much time, but this is great. We're together. And then, maybe I wake up, or maybe he gets sick and dies again. And this is part of the healing that I've had to do.
Yeah, recurring theme.
Because that's what dreams are, right?
Yeah, the kind of missing him and wanting that opportunity again to spend time with him. It's going to come up in your dreams for sure. So you're having this whoa, it's jumpy. You're having this feeling that maybe what happened immediately prior to the spaceship scene was this experience of realizing your father was still alive, like, whoa. And then bam, you're spending time together in the dream in this way of fighting this common enemy. Okay. So in terms of, did you have a sense of where you were in space? Like you're in space, there's a spaceship. Were you hovering above Earth or some other planet? Were you? It
was very much like Terminator 2, the very beginning, and the city is all like in ruin, like they're on Earth. It's like, like the cheesy 80s kind of thing, but it was very post-apocalyptic, but it was on Earth.
Okay, so you weren't in space. There was a spaceship, and it had landed, and you're outside this, and you don't remember actually, say, gearing up to leave the ship. You're outside. Yeah. We were like defending it, like they're all kind of, and we're like, we need to get out of here, kind of thing. And what is it that made you think it was a spaceship? Were there visual images, or just something you knew this is a spaceship? It was very much like, X-Men and the hangar door, and it's like, and that was at the back of the ship. Okay. It was something like that. Like it was like a massive, landing craft thing. Okay. That is interesting that your mind, the way it understands this thing was like a spaceship, that it wasn't just an airplane. It wasn't a Huey helicopter that also has that back door. It wasn't a troop transport on wheels. It was literally, specifically a spaceship. Not sure what to make of that, but that stands out too as maybe it feeds into your image, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself too, of, what would you find in a sci-fi setting where there's cyber zombies? Spaceship. So it may just fit with the theme, but it might also mean something else. Go ahead.
And the other part that was really big about it, like it was more just the setting, right?
Yeah.
But we were at the back of this thing with the door down, and we're trying to get, into it, right? Into this ship. Now it wasn't like a spaceship, like a NASA rocket ship. It was very much more similar to, the one in X-Men, that big silver sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I think that one was, if I remember correctly, designed to kind of approximate the visual design of it was like the SR-71 Blackbird. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of a style, very very sleek, long, powerful, fast. Yeah, for sure. So the purpose that you guys were, I'm just so happy about flat torn pages. So OCD checked.
That's perfect.
I know, it just makes me so happy. It really does. Almost embarrassingly so. Like I feel like I embarrass myself just how much I love evenly torn pages. Anyway, long story short there.
Meanwhile, I have piles of stuff everywhere.
Different styles. Yeah, that's
right.
How you do. My wife drives me a little bit crazy. She's kind of a piles person.
Yes.
I know what's in that pile. Leave it alone. I'm like, but it's not orderly. I can't conceptualize how to find anything.
I'm piles everywhere. Piles.
Yeah. If it works for you, hey.
Yeah. I'm getting better though. I'm getting better because in my job I have to be.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like, can you get me the file on this person? Like, oh yeah. No messing around.
For sure. So the experience you were having at that moment was accomplishing a retreat into this from having fought these creatures, or you're engaged in a fight, but the fight isn't, you're not leaving the ship to go engage them. You're actually withdrawing from them to escape. That was the sensation you had?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very much like, and very kind of, it was super campy, right? Like in the sense of, like these 80s movies. Like it was totally, again, our dreams are a compilation of the things that we see in our waking life, right? And then this is my understanding of dreams. And then we're trying to make sense of it and to heal from it. I think a lot of dreams is therapy. It's the ultimate meditation.
Yeah.
And in this dream, I'm very much like, the guy with the machine gun, like
that was going to be my next question. Was how were you guys dressed?
Right.
And what weapons were you using? Yourself, your brother, and your dad. How do you have strong images of what you were wearing, what weapons you were wielding?
So the way that I'm remembering it now, and again, I want to be honest that, I probably am injecting things into this dream. Like I'm embellishing here,
right?
Even unconsciously, right? Like the fish was this big, right? But really it was. Anyways, but if I recall correctly, from what I recall, I was like the heavy, like the guy with like the M60 kind of thing. My dad was like the leader, like the who was the guy in the A team who would always smoke the cigars?
Oh, Hannibal? Like, yeah.
He was like Hannibal. He was like, we gotta fly this thing. He was a pilot because my dad was a pilot. He flew like DC-10s and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and my brother, he's kind of like, I love him. He's kind of geeky, right? He was like the computer guy, like, according to my calculations, we need to get out of here. Like,
gotcha.
Pushing his glasses up on his nose kind of thing. But he's in it too. He's got the AK, you know what I mean? So we're all battling these things off, but our very different personalities are showing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember specific behaviors, configuration of how you did it? Like, were you at the rear, but the closest to the enemies and laying down suppressive fire so they could get in first? Or were you guys, all three of you, shoulder to shoulder in a line? Kind of how do you remember that configuration?
I remember it. Yeah, it's the way that I kind of, again, recall it, because I think recall is pretty good. Dream recall.
Yeah.
Is we kind of started off all in the sort of the phalanx, like, I'm looking this way, looking that way, and then they're kind of getting in, they're pulling back, and then I'm, hanging on kind of thing, and then I get in sort of thing. So very much in my own mind, I'm being sort of the heroic machismo kind of, that BS, right? But that's just where I was in my life, I guess.
Sure. And so you said you kind of hung on as it started to take off, and while you were still say hanging onto the outside, laying down the suppressive fire.
Yeah. It's actually a great dream. I'm glad I'm doing
to get a chance to go back into it in your head. Yeah.
It was honestly, it was one of like the best dreams I've ever, because it was like why watch a movie?
Oh yeah. Wasn't there was a movie recently, not recently, it was 20 years ago, but there was a like an underground black market in a futuristic sci-fi dystopia where people were trading in dreams. They would purchase the ability to say experience. I don't know if it was just dreams or if it was just other people's experiences in general, but you could just live what someone else lived in these little chunks, and it was messing with people's head. It wasn't healthy or safe or whatever the technology was, but that reminded me of that too, of like, if we could do that, it would replace probably movies. That's kind of what we're doing now with the internet, is like just these people just broadcasting their lives, and we're like, I'm going to live in that. I'm going to go into that and see it and live it with that person for a minute instead of my own life. It's so wild. Dude, it's so wild. Because you're right. The movies that we once watched, like, this is how pretentious I'm going to sound, but it's like that wasn't thought provoking enough. You know what I mean? Now I'm watching films like last night I saw. Do you know who James Baldwin is? That does sound familiar. Who is he again?
He was like a civil rights, he was a black activist, but he was actually no, that's not the right word. He was a human activist, but he was very much in the system of race in America and stuff. Anyways, there's this movie out called Not Your Negro. Mm-hmm. That's the title of the movie. And dude, I was watching that last night and I was like, this is blowing my mind. Whereas I could have just watched, the new Terminator movie, but not been like, it just would have been entertaining. I wouldn't have gotten anything out of it. And I think now where I'm at in my life, I like to get something out of it.
Yeah, there's a term that just came to mind, infotainment, which has been used derogatorily, I'd say, since the 90s, to kind of derogatorily, it would mean this is the news, but it's really just presented for fun or to engage you in a salacious way. But then there's kind of the flip side of, in my estimation, of infotainment would be you were entertained by receiving information, which hopefully that's what we're doing here, and what a lot of content being produced today is like, this is equal parts engaging and interesting or educational to that idea anyway.
Absolutely. And but also there's stuff that's so, like, it just reeks of capitalism. I want to be careful using that word, but it's like, it just reeks of, I just want money, right? Like, it's lacking intent. Like, it's almost like in Buddhism, they talk about intent and, just understanding the impermanence of everything. Whereas this is like, it's very much like the neural connection in the Matrix trying to suck the life out of people. You know what I mean? Versus the stuff that's trying to grow.
Yeah. And there's
I'm going on a tangent there, but
no, that's okay. There's recent internet concepts, and I don't know why I say internet, but it's just because that's become our new medium of human communication. So a lot of the best ideas are coming together, like the wisdom of the crowd. Different people have different pieces of the puzzle, and then we all put it together ourselves, and we get these memes. So where was I going with that? The idea of there's shilling, but that's not the word I'm looking for. There's it's. I think we mentioned, exploitation earlier, the idea that that's not what I'm doing here, but there are people who are like, they just want to give you any cheap crap they can to get money from you. And that's kind of a lot of content out there in terms of, I wouldn't say content creators necessarily, but but the way you mentioned capsules, like it's for the money. It's not for the art. It's not for the education. It's just to get you to give them something. And if they can flash pretty colors and make you feel something, that's their entire goal. They don't care about anything else. So, yeah.
Distraction versus purpose.
Yeah.
Like, is what you're doing, is it a distraction or is it purposive? Like what you're doing is clearly purposeful.
I hope it's both.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
That's what I'm talking about too, in terms of like, what was I trying to say? And I don't want anyone out there to say, feel like I'm dogging on them for, oh, you're just doing that for fun. You got to do things for fun. You got to
absolutely.
You got to turn your thinking brain off and just have your entertainment once in a while too.
Because how pretentious is that to like, I'm so aesthetic, right? Right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
That's a great point. Obviously, I'm getting something out of it.
Yeah. So, right? I mean, one thing I do is, I spend my day trying to be productive. I do these videos and I'm working on editing books and whatnot. But then at the end of the night, I just get a little bowl of crackers and I watch some anime. Now, hopefully the anime is also entertaining, but it's like, that's not accomplishing anything. It's just for fun. Just a little reward for the end of my day. Just something fun to, pretty colors and then maybe an interesting story, I hope. Yeah. And so I'm not, pretentious is the right word. It's like, I don't own a television.
Yeah.
I
have this wonderful vinyl record collection. Can I show you how pretentious I am?
Right, exactly. So, just to bring us back to the drink, trying to be conscious of your time. I don't want us to run out of time for the interpretation discussion, because I think we're already getting there. I think we're both eager to get there. We keep and
I got till 1 too. Like I'm enjoying this.
That's good.
I'm getting something out of it, and I'm being entertained. So don't worry.
I hope so. And by the way, if my audience is as well, you can look in the links below and support the wizard, buy my book, etc.
Yes.
I always forget to do that in the middle of an episode.
But it's good though, because that's what's going to keep you doing what you want to do.
I hope so. Yeah, I would like to never have a real job again. I just want to sit at home and talk to people on the internet. That would be lovely.
Well, this is your real job. This is the purpose. Right?
I hope so. Yeah, gotta just turn enough profit to keep the lights on. That's it.
But I digress. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hopefully, this is.
I told you I was bad this way.
That's all right. We're gonna get there. Was the end of this section the takeoff of this vehicle with you shooting from the outside, hanging on, and then you got in, and then kind of cut scene again?
Well,
or was there more that happened in that process?
And here again is the recall versus the the opposite of redacting, adding, I guess. Anyways,
sure. But there's a word for that. I've been racking my brain. I can't remember.
Yeah, but again, how we remember things isn't how they were. It's just how we're remembering them in that state of mind based on all the things coming in, our neural connections making our truth, right? So that's why history is so interesting, because we could look at an event in history and then 100 years later look at the same event but get different conclusions from it. So again, I don't know. But going back to what I'm saying about the dream this is what I recall, is that we all sit down and we're kind of like, that was great. Kind of like in Star Wars. Again, totally not the same, but when Obi-Wan's in there and Han Solo's in there, Luke's in there, they're all like sitting down and they're, shooting the crap, right? They're like, that was awesome. That there was that camaraderie after. All three of us.
And where in the vehicle did that take place? Was it like in that kind of?
It was in like the cockpit.
In the base, so you'd actually gone up to the cockpit.
Yeah.
Did you find a pilot there? Was there anyone else?
Well, my dad was the pilot.
Okay, so that's how it took off. He had to get there, and he was the pilot because he's a pilot in real life, and so he's flying it, and you're covering the rear, and you go up to the cockpit. Do you remember anything about the nature of the conversation you guys had in the cockpit?
It was just that kind of like the BS. Like I really can't think of it any other way. And again, this is not to talk ill of my family, but they were quite paternalistic, like machismoism, and all that stuff, right? Like, yeah, we did it. And we didn't say anything derogatory or chauvinistic about women or anything like that. But it was very much like, yeah, we're men. Like, it's very Spartan.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It was just kind of understood in your family that the man is the what's the word for it? I mean, paternal is a good way to do it, but the leader. But there's another. My brain's blanking out on the right terms.
Yeah, but the reality is, in my family, is I was raised by my mother because my dad died at when I was 14. So, this dream, looking at it now, is so incredibly romanticized.
Sure.
From what the reality is, right? Like, you think about post-apocalyptic monsters coming at you. That shit is terrifying, right?
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that too, about the nature of these creatures. You said they were part machine, part zombie.
They were like you know, in the 80s movies, how the animatronics, they were so like, for whatever reason, their movement as animatronics were more grotesque than like a fluid human kind of thing. So the way that they move,
herky jerky.
Yeah. I don't know why. I've always like The Thing. To me, that movie is like the freakiest movie ever because those were actually like real puppets.
Practical effects, they say. Yeah,
exactly.
No, that was super creepy.
Yeah, CGI is like, this is stupid. So, but anyways, these robot things were very like, they were very humanistic in their movement.
Gotcha. And they were even shaped human-like. When you get a visual image of them, what parts were robot, what parts were human? Or were they all 100% robot that just looked human?
They were very much like humanoid, you think a cyborg, but just all metal, like no flesh, like no artificial flesh.
Gotcha. But so that's why I'm keying in on that a little bit. Is you've mentioned zombies, which would be dead human. You've mentioned cyborg, which is actually human machine blending, but these were actually 100% metal. They just gave this appearance and the movement of zombies. And did you get the sense that there was any human parts in there at all? That they like had the brain of a human that had died, or any human connection, or they were 100% non-human and only looked human externally?
I would say, and here I go off on one of my philosophical meditations.
Sure.
But there's something about the human species that we love having us and thems, right? Like clear, this is us and this is our opponent. And we've seen that with the Cold War, right? There's us, the capitalists, and there's the communists. We've seen that with the Spartans and the Athenians. Down through history, there's always been an us and a them.
In group, out group, yeah.
Yeah. And that we dehumanize these groups to make it easier for us to fight them, right? Yeah. But really, we're one and the same, right? And that's why conflict is so difficult, because we have to do the Edward Said, the othering of them. But that's just a construct. Yeah. Really, we're more alike than we're similar, right? So that's why with these robots, I think that they had to so clearly, every part of them was like they're like cannon fodder, if that makes sense. Like, there was no remorse for what we were doing. Like, it was, clearly these were the enemy, and there was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I was, I don't know. I do something called rattling doors, and I get an idea of one to go somewhere, and sometimes the door doesn't pop open, and I drop it. But I think there's relevance to some type of symbol or the way it's presented. And the nature of these creatures seemed important because you're fighting them. Then again, I could rattle that doorknob, and it's just like they could end up being nothing more than a vehicle to make sense of this experience you're having with your family. Like, okay, we need an enemy, brain, throw one out there, robots, done. And it just moves on. And it may not be that relevant, but I did want to also ask a little bit about, did you have a sense of what had caused the apocalypse on Earth? how it had gotten into that destroyed state? Did these machines do it? Did you have any sense of that in the dream? How this kind of state of affairs came to be?
Yeah. So great. I'm loving this, man. These are great questions.
Thank you.
Oftentimes in movies, like some of the zombie movies that I like, the zombies are they're like the setting. They're not actually the story. The story is the human element, the human struggle, right? But the zombies are just sort of like, if it could take place in Hawaii and it was a rom-com, the zombie is this very existential film. And of course the word zombie comes from like hoodoo and voodoo cultures, and was not actually a reanimated corpse. Marie Laveau, have you ever heard of her?
That also sounds familiar, but go ahead. Yeah.
She was this incredible woman in New Orleans who was like a healer, but people thought that she was like this witch and this like demon lady, Christians, but she was able to placate the Catholic Church, placate government in Louisiana, and heal people. Right. Again, this is my very, like, I'm out of school here. Like, this is not what this is just based on a book I read. Anyways, but the grand zombie was this snake that she had. And it was like, again, as I'm recalling, it was the essence of wisdom. Oh. But we see the snake and we're like, oh my God, it's a monster. So we Frankenstein it, right? Like, Dr. Frankenstein, we create monsters when really, we're corrupting things.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you're talking about memory changing, but then also history changing based on our interpretation in terms of what did we actually see? How did we understand it? And then what do we tell others? What is that? The communication process of what you think, what you say or how you say it, what the person hears, and then how they process it. You got like at the minimum 4 opportunities for a message to go completely wrong. You conceive it wrong, you express it wrong, they hear it wrong, and they process it wrong. At every step of the way, we're in for a mess.
Yes, it's again going back to Plato's allegory of the cave, right? And that's why the internet is so amazing, because we're getting all these ideas together. If we just stop being so dead set on our truth, again, this is where my show and your show kind of come in. I'm probably wrong about everything. I'm not willing to die on the hill for that way of thinking, but I am passionate about it, but I want to listen to you too. Right. And that's where we're going, and I'm sorry, where am I going with this? But with Plato's allegory of the cave, you had the guy who went out and saw the light and then came back and was like, dude, you got to come check this out. But they were like, get away from me. I'm going to kill you. You're a monster. So we demonize what we don't understand because we're afraid of the consequences. Yeah. And that's kind of like the zombie. That's where I'm going with this. Is the zombie really in this culture that it was taken from, based on my limited reading, is the zombie was supposed to be like a gateway, a portal to a deeper understanding, but we saw it as something to be fearful of because we wanted to stay in our cave. Does that make sense?
No, I think there's a connection there for sure. So bringing it back to the dream.
I appreciate you. Thank you for this.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. So it may not be, it may just be kind of a cultural reference from from living in America and then as a child. And this is again relating back to when you were much younger and maybe your memory of some of those iconic representations of different things from that time period, kind of bringing them forward, saying, if I'm going to be in a battle with my family as my teammates, we need an antagonist. So bam, metal zombies. And it says something about you too. And I guess we're kind of into the interpretation side of things, that they weren't human. So you didn't have to feel guilty about killing them either. It was like, well, if they're just robots, then, at least I'm not hurting anybody and I can have fun with this. So it wasn't presenting you an image of something you would then have to reflect on uncomfortably and say, when you woke up, how did I enjoy killing people? That was horrible. Your brain just shut that off and said, they're robots. Don't worry about it. So that might have been the meaning for that.
Such a great point. And again, going back on the 80s movies archetypes and how they were like in Commando, he goes to that, South American banana republic, and he's just killing people in mass. People who are fathers, you know what I mean? Brothers, sons, they have families, but he's just right? And it's like, there's no consequences for this. But now when you think about it, you like going back, that is somebody's dad. Do you know what I mean? And the continuation of the pain from that inconsequential killing, right? Yeah. And that's why my mind is like, create the robots, kill the robots, because there's no consequence. We need an enemy. But again, the more that we're learning is, well, what if robots have feelings too? Like, vegetarians are like, I don't eat meat because animals have feelings. Well, that's bullshit. You don't think a leaf of lettuce has feelings too? Trees have feelings.
Yeah, there's a good question of, is it that they lack sentience, or we can't comprehend their type of communication or understanding of the world? I mean, there's it's significant enough difference that we could say they're not human and they're not animal, but they're not mineral. There's something else. There's something in between.
Yes, they grow.
Yeah, they are life. They are a form of life.
Yeah.
And that's, speaking of like the tragedy of, Commando, one of my favorite movies from the 80s. I loved Schwarzenegger, was really in love with Alyssa Milano back then. Oh boy, who's the boss? Appointment viewing for my teenage self back in the day. Oh yeah, and I can say that I was in love.
Awesome.
I was in love with the teenage Alyssa Milano because I was her same age. So we can clarify
that.
I
see.
It was not creepy at the time.
No, of course not.
Exactly.
That was a great joke, by the way. That was an awesome joke.
Thank you. But so getting back to Commando itself, he went after these people because they kidnapped her. So they are villains, but then there's also this tragedy of, he didn't go just looking for people to kill because he's malicious. He's on a mission to save family.
Yes.
They put themselves in harm's way, but it's
justified.
Also, yeah, it's justified. And it's also,
which it is. I mean, I have a daughter, right? Like,
yeah. And if someone was like, I'm going to kidnap you, you're like, well, you're going to die. That's just the way it is. I don't want to do it. Got to do it. So there is the justification, but it's also that tragedy at the same time of like, can't people just not do bad things and then they don't have to be punished? Can we just please? That's the outcome I'd be looking for every day of my life. Let's just not have that problem.
and that goes into stepping into your purpose.
Yeah.
But and I'm sorry for going off on the tangents here, but this is all from your facilitation.
I think you're just going to talk for an hour and a half. We'll call it good.
There you go. No, but we're still going back to this dream.
For sure. No, I haven't forgotten.
But when we take away when we make the choice to take away other people's choices, you know what I mean? Like, that's the problem with society is when we choose to take away other people's choices, there's always going to be consequences. Going back to your purpose, I think we all have a purpose, and when we live in that purpose, like for me, it's talking with you and and having my mind blown by the connections that you're making. That's my purpose. That's when I'm happy. And when I'm with my family, that's my, right? But so many of us, we're not living in our purpose, and that's creating pain for us. And what do we know about pain? Well, it's like a hot potato. We want to get rid of it. So we make other people feel the pain. Like, feel this hot potato. Ooh, 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 right?
Yeah.
So when we choose to take away other people's choices, we're always going to have pain in this world. So that's why we need to make the choices for ourselves. Like, for example, just a side note, somebody had to cancel an appointment that I had today. So I could have been like, oh, hey, can you come to this time? But that would be me taking that person's choice. Do you know what I mean? Like, trying to move things to my way. Whereas I should just, okay, that person canceled. I'm going to see this next person at the time that I originally had because I made that choice, right? To stop trying to be an authoritarian of other people's time. I don't know. Tell me, does that make...
Yeah, and I love that word too. I just love words in general. It's another tangent here. Words are memes, and of course, in the not classic, but in the most specific understanding, a meme is a unit of cultural information. So we have a symbol.
I'm writing that down.
Oh yeah, that was the original definition by the guy that coined the term. A unit of cultural information is a meme. So when you think of it from that way, the letter A, the symbol we make for the letter A, is a meme. And then you take multiple memes, different ones, you string them together, and you get a word. And the word itself is a meme made up of other memes. And then you take those memes of letters, symbols, and words, and you put them into sentences and paragraphs and books. And eventually we've got this kind of, how I conceive it is, memes are the structure upon which reality hangs. Like our ability to perceive the world is all through these layers of memes, which, a lot of people think memes are just funny cat pictures on the internet. They are. That is also memes. But yes, it's literally the words we speak, the symbols we communicate. I say this in almost every video lately because I'm obsessed with it for whatever reason. But the yin yang symbol, I consider that one of the earliest names or representations of our attempt to kind of conceive of the creator of the universe, God, however you do that. Like what is this thing I'm experiencing in total? Go ahead.
So and kind of piggybacking off what you're saying. So think about zeitgeist, right? Like to me, zeitgeist is like the spirit of now, right?
Yeah.
Like looking at history, right? History is very zeitgeisty. So we could look at a moment in 1947. We could look at the French Revolution in 1947 as a class struggle, right? Which, it was, but then we look at it today and we could see these were individual people who had enough, right? Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that based on where we are in our consciousness, right? That's kind of like what zeitgeist is. So are memes almost like the circuitry of the zeitgeist, like the capillaries and the blood of the zeitgeist?
I don't know. I mean, that's one way to put it. It's yeah. That's how I expressed it in terms of that, like the framework upon which our perception of reality hangs. It's like without a framework, there's a lot of different words for it. Lens, rubric, patterns of understanding. Without those pieces, we can't really make sense of what's going on around us. That's kind of how we do it. So there's and this is all getting back to that word authoritarian. I'm trying to link it back. But when if you talk to, say, certain Saharan tribesmen or whatever, 200 years ago, and you ask them, what's your word for snow? They're going to go, we don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of this
stuff.
What is that? Yeah. Living in the desert, never experienced it. And then you go to the Eskimos, and they've got 20 words for different kinds of snow. And it's all these cultural units of information that help us make sense of the world. And a lot of their analogies in the Great North will be related to experiences of their environment and related to snow, whereas desert dwellers, their analogies and understandings are related to experiences of what it's like living in a desert. So why did I go off on that tangent with the idea of memes is that it was kind of the way you pronounce the word authoritarian. You are authoring, the idea of to author, to create a story, right. And authoritarian meaning broadly, not direct definition, but to author someone else's story. And that's to bring it way, way, way back around to your original point of trying not to tell other people, not because you can tell other people how to live, but you don't want to limit their choices. You want to tell them and let them choose.
Yes.
And then that's the opposite of authoritarian. You're not authoring their story. Yeah. Anyway,
misery is I like who's there's that funny show, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh yeah, I used to watch that the old '90s version with Greg Proops and a bunch of those other guys.
Yeah. But it's like whose story is it? Right? Is it ours to through exploitation we get meaning out of it? Right? Or is it the individual story to gain confidence from it or something? Or like, whose story is it?
Yeah, definitely. And if you tell or force other people how to live, then it just becomes your story. It's not. And I think there's moral barriers, reasons why that's a bad thing to do to other people, but there's also practical, pragmatic considerations of you're losing the ability for that person to show you something you didn't know, you never couldn't understand without them expressing it in their own way, because you've taken their ability to give you something away from them.
You've taken their choice. You made that choice to take their choices.
Yeah, and that
to fit your narrative.
Yeah, and that even takes your own choices away, because now you can't see the world as it really is because you've forced it into a box that it doesn't belong in.
And the misery that comes with that. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that again, I talked about asceticism, and I'm probably saying that word wrong.
Close enough.
But that's when you beat yourself up, right? You're like, I'm a bad.
Yeah,
and it's like. Yes, we've done, I've done bad things. My culture has done bad things. But we can move forward. You know what I mean? And we have to grow our consciousness, Yeah. And again, in our day and age, be careful what you say, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of bringing it back to the dream, speaking about moving forward, this dream seems like it was definitely related to helping you, as you expressed earlier, heal from this trauma of having lost your dad, but for the purpose of moving forward. I'm getting that kind of vibe from this dream and that's from the idea that you're fighting to go somewhere. You're not fighting to hold a position. You're not, it could have been similar to fighting your way into somewhere as well, but that would lead us down a different path. But this was fighting to leave, but it was a defensive action against an external threat, your family together, and the motion you were moving towards. The reason you were fighting was to travel. Yeah,
we were retreating there. A retreat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to go somewhere. Yeah, you're
Yeah, when you think about it from that perspective, and in the context of trying to move forward with your life, does any of the dream imagery speak to you about paths you took since then?
Yes.
Yeah. How would you describe that? In any particular element?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I've ever really fit in anywhere. I'm like a chameleon. I can fit in anywhere, but I don't fit in. You know what I mean? You can still see the meridians around my chameleon. Like, here I am. I'm blended in. I'm on this wood desk, but you can still see that I'm not the wood desk. Does that make sense?
I do. Yeah. And again, let's say maybe to help normalize that for the audience is that we all wear a mask based on the different settings we're in. And some people find it easier to put on a mask. They can identify the type of mask they need for this social situation. You put it on, but it's like, that's not us. And that's not the mask I would necessarily choose to wear. And there's a lot of different reasons we have to put on different masks for good reason. And putting on a mask is not, say, hiding yourself. It's conforming to the needs of the situation, be it social, physical. So there's nothing wrong with being a social chameleon. The negative side people jump to in pop psychology misunderstanding is, oh, well, he's just being fake. No, just setting aside some parts of yourself that don't fit here because it's not the right time or place. We all got to do that.
There's a Darwinistic element.
Yeah.
Right.
How would you describe that? Yeah.
Well, if I was just myself, all the time, for one, that would be exhausting. And for me, sometimes I, like my family, I have to be a dad, I have to find a mate, so I do have to make some selective choices. I can't just be standing on my soapbox. We need to, blah, blah, blah. People are going to generally okay, that's interesting. You think about certain stars, certain celebrities, and they can get kind of lost. You can get lost, right? Like,
yeah,
at some point you have to have that sort of, you have to have boundaries. You know, when is there too much of something that I have, you know, now I've been too vulnerable and now I'm kind of a prisoner to this.
Yeah.
You know,
you
that
can
I
be a
haven't
prison
been
to
able
your
to,
own vices, so to speak, without other people telling you, hey, there's a limit. I think you're pointing to celebrities or even just like extremely wealthy people that are like, they can have anything and do anything. And some of them do. And some of the things they do are just awful. And they've lost this connection to other people. They've lost that feedback from other people because they don't need them. They can do anything they want. And they got surrounded by a bunch of people tell them anything they want to hear for the money. Yeah.
like there is a balance, right? Like, again, what we do, we want to get something out of it, right? There is that economic,
sure.
The fiscal economic, right? But then there's also the spiritual economic. But we can't just be sitting around in our robes, you know, shooting the breeze. Like, we still have to play in this system, right, of society.
For sure. Yeah. And I think after a little bit more description from you, I get where you're going with the Darwin thing is there is a need for adaptability, and it's it's survival strategies of different kinds. And there's social survival strategies of wearing the right mask, but then there's also these profitable things of like, and profit, not to go with the negative terms of like extracting value or whatever, but profiting from experience, getting something out of an experience. We need to profit by our ingestion of breakfast, energy for the day. That's our profit from eating. So if you're going to profit, or if you're going to succeed or draw value from, say, being a father, you have to put on that mask in a certain way where you embody that role. And then, I mean, that's where the whole idea of wearing a mask kind of came from. It goes back to the Greek tragedies, or the comedies, or the plays, and the what is it? They would all the actors would wear masks, and those masks would say something about their character. They were embodying a certain type, a certain archetype, we could say. And then that way the audience would know who they're looking at and why. And we do the same thing with, say, modern movies and whatnot. Lon Chaney puts on the werewolf makeup, and you're like, oh, he's a wolf man. You see the mask and you understand the role and how he's acting in it for a reason. Anyway, I'm all over the map.
Going back to having clear enemies, having these clear distinctions, right? He is the wolf. He is Dracula. He is the bad guy. But that's not really what society is. Like Yuval Noah Harari. Do you ever read him?
No, it's you're throwing a lot of great new names at me. I'm gonna go back and listen to this and write them down.
He's unreal. Okay, so he meditates like an hour a day, twice a day. So he's able to stay very centered in how he sees things.
I don't think I can sit still that long. My brain's too busy. Meditation's
honestly,
never been my thing, but I'm jealous.
Benjamin, I want you to try it. Like me as your friend, I want you to try meditating, because I do it, and as you can clearly tell, I'm like I am a mental squirrel, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But it's helping me, right? Because I sit with it, and you know, my ideas are rattling around. Anyways,
well, I take that in the spirit it's intended. You think this is good? You want to share something good with me? I appreciate it. Whether I do it or not, I take it as
exactly. You again, going back to choices, right? It's you have complete choice, but I'm just saying this choice helped me. If that makes sense.
And I appreciate it for exactly that. Yeah.
So, but Yuval Noah Harari. And I apologize if I'm not saying his name quite right, but he wrote Sapiens in 21 Lessons for the 21st Century.
Okay.
The latter book, please, you know, if you're curious, I got a lot out of it. But he says that we look at these enemies like Darth Vader and what was the other one? Like Voldemort, like these just supreme evil.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a banality to evil. You know what I mean? Like sure. it's just you and me, and we make really bad choices, right? Like it could be anybody. It's everyday people.
Yeah.
That go on to commit atrocity. right? Like you look at the Holocaust, you know, those weren't like demonic satanic creatures like like the animatropics. Those were just everyday people.
Yeah, there's a bit of a tendency among all of us, I would say, to think such things are impossible for us, that couldn't be us under the right or the wrong circumstances, that we just don't have it in us. And I think part of what'll make us better, broadly speaking, as a whole world is to kind of understand that's in all of us. There's something in there that could come out under the wrong circumstances and just make a mess of everything. And and
the clear distinctions.
Yeah,
I could never be that. I could go to again, you know, not having things misconstrued, because people hear things and they hear it. They don't necessarily hear my word. They hear their thoughts through my words, if that makes sense.
For sure.
But there's the Stanford prison experiment, right?
Right. Yeah. That was
where it was like, just keep pressing the buzzer, keep pressing the buzzer. Okay, I guess. I think he's like getting hurt. Just keep pressing the buzzer. This is what this person's telling me to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there was, what was it? Philip Zimbardo, I think. And he was looking into that. Like, I've watched a lot of his, not a lot, but quite a bit about him and his lectures and that classic experiment. And he's like, he got into that because he wanted to understand how could someone be an Auschwitz prison guard. And so he creates this prison experiment to say what happens to people if we give them complete authority over others, even in a fictional setting. And like within days, like immediately it went off the rails. And there's some critique that I don't know if it's legitimate, that some people are saying, or I heard somewhere that some of the participants said they started to fuck around on purpose because they just wanted to go home. They were bored. And so they're like, let's just get crazy and see if we can make him cancel this. Maybe that happened. Maybe it didn't. But I think the principle is the same. It's like you give people complete control with no consequences, and they're probably going to abuse it. It just kind of happens to us. It's not even that we want it. It's like a trap we fall into.
But and you're right. And maybe those people that were fucking around, is that not like, is that not an insight? Is that not part of it? Right? Because here's the thing. When I'm playing video games, playing Elder Scrolls, I don't go around killing everyone. There's just something about that that's wrong. Even though these are like GTA, when I play GTA, I'm not just hitting every pedestrian on them. I hit it. I avoid that.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that I feel like there's a neurological connection that you are creating when you're doing things like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even though it's not real, there's something about that we need to imagine that it's real. It's like pretend play. Like you can learn a lot about a kid, because I'm a registered clinical counselor, from watching their pretend play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Are they killing the damsel in distress? Sorry to use that archetype. That's
sure.
Again,
or are they saving her? Yeah. What is their choice in that?
What are they doing with the problem? Are they just killing everybody? We would think that there's something wrong with that kid if that's how they're solving the problem.
Yeah. Or that something wrong happened to them, that they've got this now expression of this, say, rage or desire to, and then what is it? Is it they are now desiring to hurt people, or are they just trying to empty their world because they'd rather be alone? But when I play video games, sometimes I tell myself, I'm going to try the evil character this time. And I can't even role play it. I feel so bad about these imaginary characters that don't even exist, that I'm betraying them or killing them. Like even in this virtual world, they don't exist anymore once they're dead. It's like, I took this piece out. Why would I do that? It just feels so wrong. Yeah. But
I think, Benjamin, that like, not to do the whole moral superiority piece or anything, but I just think that that's where you are. Do you know what I mean? That's
For
where
sure.
you are. And you know, not to pump my own tires, but maybe that's where I am. But there's still that propensity to get in the car in GTA and drive.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? We all have the same controller.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know. I apologize for this strange metaphor.
No, it's okay. That's actually a great metaphor. I think video games and role playing games in general are a great metaphor for life.
That's how we got here.
We're all born with the same controller. This body. This is our controller. We can act upon the world through this, through pushing buttons and whatnot. That's exactly right.
Every human being has the same control, right? But for whatever reason, again, going back to some people, the idea of choosing to take people's choices away. And that's why I started reading Malcolm X. Again, like I'm out of school here. But when you start reading things that, like, going back to history, I was told Malcolm X was a scary person, right? Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, dude, this guy, he made the ultimate sacrifice. He chose to spread a message, even though he had a family, right? He had to, like, he wanted to create a better world, and he realized, like, I have to give up my family to help spread this message, right? And I'm thinking, like, man, that's a sacrifice I couldn't make because I love my kid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going off on a wild tangent.
No, I think these thoughts are all related. It would be good to keep looking at the clock to make sure I don't run you out of time. With the dream, we kind of went down this particular road because it was I was asking about
the door through that.
We sure did.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of what I'm doing here is the dream discussion is a bit of a vehicle just to engage with people about what's going on in their minds and their lives and kind of help them get clarity on whatever. And I think in terms of a dream that was so long ago for you, you've already gotten a lot of clarity about the situation that the dream was trying to help you understand. So that's where you get into that idea of now taking your long afterthoughts and laying them back over the dreams, probably still very, very accurate. So that's where I was going to get to with this idea of saying, in looking back on it now, having followed whatever path that this dream might have been trying to show you, what understanding of that dream does it give you? I mean, do you have any thoughts of your own of like what this dream was trying to say at the time? Having time to reflect on it over the years.
I think it was, that's a great question. What really is life other than us just musing? We're just kind of toiling about and from a third eye perspective, shows like The Big Brothers and The Bachelor, those are all so silly because here we are just watching people toil about. It's fake. Anyways, this is just me trying to figure out existence, right? Like, my dad passed away, but in my mind, he's still there, and we're still, trying to figure out life. What are these robots? Technology taking over? Clear enemy, right?
Yeah.
Something simple, something campy, something in a nice box, right? And
almost as comical, not comical, but you say like a TV sitcom. No fear to this dream. It was more
light,
but also adventurous. Maybe it was an adventure versus a horror movie, so to speak. It had more of that vibe.
Yeah, it was like easy listening. Like it wasn't challenging. It wasn't trying to shake me. It was just sort of like.
No, I get the sense that rather than
like yacht rock.
Rather than trying to disturb you into an understanding, it was a comforting, maybe aspirational dream. From two angles. And what you said a moment ago, I think is very relevant. The idea of what is the comforting idea of, I wish my father was still with me and I was closer with my family such that we could fight together versus the enemies of the world, whatever they may be. So there's that wish fulfillment side of having your father come back, which seemed like that might have been the thing that immediately preceded this section of the dream. Oh, he is back. Hey, now we can do this thing together. But there's another piece of that I think that happens maybe at the same time, which is there is still something of your father with you to this day. And the dream might have been trying to show you that as well, that he can still be a pilot for your life in a certain way, that whatever he represents, his teachings, his support early in your life, something he gave you is still with you, physically or metaphysically, and it's allowing you to, say, fly away from danger after fighting together against the world. I don't know if any of that's speaking to you.
That is such a gem that you've just given me. You know, like my favorite film of all time is Lion King.
Oh.
And that movie, I've allowed it to very much parallels. And this idea that, you know, if you haven't seen The Lion King, I'm going to do it.
Spoilers. Well, yeah.
Yeah, spoiler. But when he sees his dad, clouds, Fawcett.
Yeah.
And that part of that
first thing
movie,
I thought of when you said it, yeah.
Dude, it always just, like, you have forgotten yourself. That's what he says to him.
Yeah.
You've forgotten yourself. And I always think to myself, those are, like, they shake me. Because it's like, have I forgotten myself? You know, it's like at the end of Saving Private Ryan. These men made these sacrifices for this one guy. And at the end of the show, again, spoiler, he'd say Private Ryan. Fuck you. Anyways, I'm just joking, of course. But he says to his wife, did I earn it? And these are the questions I ask myself. This idea of, am I just toiling about, or am I making the most opportunities that I have? The life that, right? The sacrifices that have been made. The people who made the choice to let me have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something very important in the idea of making the most of opportunities. In a practical sense, an opportunity will pass, you'll miss it, and you don't get physical benefit from it, which could kill you or limit other choices. But then there's the kind of debt. It's like an inherited debt in a way to the people that came before, or the people around you who are giving of themselves, or at least giving you the space to be yourself. And you kind of owe it to, what is it? It's a responsibility to their generosity in a way, to make something of yourself, to make the most of that opportunity that they're giving, to respect. There's a respect for that generosity, or that comes in fulfilling the potential. That's what I'm trying to say.
and tell me too, you remember the film 300?
Oh yeah.
Right. This, and again, you know, there was some, you know, stuff there that like sometimes I watch films and I'm like, you know, what are they trying to say here? Like, I can overthink things, and that can really get in the way of me enjoying things.
Yeah.
You know, but other times it's like I just shut it off. Again, asceticism, you know.
Yeah.
Let's not. I don't give myself more credit than I deserve. Anyways.
Yeah.
But the idea of sacrifice, right? That these guys, you know, nobody believed them, made the sacrifice, and it kind of leaves you, the viewer. Are you making the most sacrifices for you? Right. Yeah. Whereas in this dream, it was just, like I said, it was easy listening. It wasn't like, you know,
it wasn't heavy. It was more comforting. That's the feeling you get from it. So there's that wish fulfillment part, but also a positive view of the future in that. And we're dancing around these ideas of potential and the responsibility to make the most of opportunity. So I think there's something, the fact that that line of thought came out of my question leads me to think that it's related to the theme, to the feeling that came with you out of the dream, or with the feeling within the dream. Where was I going with that? That rather than being pessimistic, dark, disturbing, tragic, it's more of a comedy, almost like you said, campy in a way. This, you know, it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a lot of those themes, the feelings we have in the dream are very relevant to what it's trying to say to us about how we're conceiving the idea we're considering at the time. So yeah, it's like a hopeful thing, like you telling yourself, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the feeling you got from it after waking up all these years ago, that you're going to be okay?
And like a moment of let's say it's respite, like a moment of clarity, like, hey, there's a lot of strife, in our existence. We wrap around this, but there are moments of calm too amidst storm.
For sure. There's shelter from it. And that's a great analogy too. It's like sometimes our family, or even our Simba style, remembering who we are because of where we came from, can give us that shelter. And not just shelter in keeping us safe from the being afflicted by the storm, but also the shelter of what am I trying to say? I lost it. So there's something else there. The respite, that idea made me think of it. The that moment is also, it's like gathering your thoughts, gathering your resources, getting yourself back together to get ready for the next
retooling.
Step. Yeah.
Retooling. Yeah.
We need that downtime as well. Sometimes you need to just get a bowl of crackers and watch some anime before you go to bed, because it makes you feel good. Just taking a break.
You're right, man. Like there is that self-care piece, and that's why
it's huge.
The tortoise and the hare, right? Well, the tortoise, he sprinted, but man, he got tired. He took a nap. Meanwhile, the tortoise, he enjoyed the journey, whereas the tortoise just wanted to get to the finish line.
Sorry, now I'm going off in my own head, so on a little tangent. I've always wanted to do a book of Aesop's fables as they relate to psychological principles. I thought that would be interesting. I haven't done the background research to see if someone already did that before, but like, here's the fable and here's what we know in modern psychology and how this kind of idea works. Because anyway,
if you're looking for a co-author,
we might just do the thing. I mean, I'm working on my second book now, and I want to just keep writing. I love it.
There's some crazy chemistry here, because I'll be honest, you say that you write, but I still feel like I'm collecting samples. Like I'm still just out there looking at, and that's an excuse.
Sure.
But I'm still looking at the shells and I'm collecting samples, but at some point I need to produce something. Which for me, this is I would consider this my passion, but writing is, anyways, if you're looking for a co-author,
we can definitely talk about that. I don't know how soon I'll get around to that. I've had
that's all right.
So not just so you don't feel bad. I mean, I'm 40 something, 42, 3. I don't even remember anymore.
You're in your prime,
right? So you might need a couple more. I can tell you're a little younger. You might need a couple more years before. Like I just started doing this in the last year or so. When the time is right, the inspiration, the muses will speak to you, so to speak, and you'll find the right time to do it for yourself. Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself in that regard.
But going back to the dream, right? This dream is saying, enjoy the journey, right? Collect those samples,
for sure.
Right? Don't just be like, because that is something that I've struggled with in life. Is I just want to get there. I want to be the hare. But really, I am a tortoise. We're all tortoises.
Yeah. And then if you're a tortoise trying to be a hare, you're not doing it right, so to speak. Sometimes you got to run a little faster, but sometimes you just got to keep moving and don't burn yourself out too quickly. That's a powerful metaphors in that story. I love Aesop's fables. I mean, that's a great thing about psychology too, is a lot of this stuff is just really smart people within the last few centuries who looked back to the ancient wisdom of 2,000 years ago and said, there's something there. Let me, even like Freud with the Oedipal complex and from the story of Oedipus Rex, there is family dynamics issues related to the relationship between a mother and a child. So he just said, from this ancient example, let me look at this issue. And then we've run with it from there and expanded and corrected misunderstandings from the time. But that's what it all goes back to, is these old, like ancient wisdom, things we've known for 2,000 years. And we're just really trying to get a grip on it in a very practical, functional way.
Building up on it. You know what I mean? Building up on it. Yeah.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. Well, I did this guy named Bruno Cayun, and he's a mindfulness integrated. He creates mindfulness CBT, so mindfulness integrated behavioral therapy. And really, what he's done is he's combined thinking of the West, some of like the abstract things of the West, because I do find it very abstract. Again, there's this pretentious element with the practicality of Buddhism, of Vispansa, I'm not saying it right, but Vispansa Buddhism, and he's made something that is like his book, man. I got to email it to you. Like, it's tangible. But the thing is you got to meditate half an hour twice a day, and it's the powers that may be are really making that choice difficult.
It's true. We don't get a lot of downtime, not if we want to accomplish anything in the way the world is currently. It's tough. It is very tough. Yeah. But, one thing, speaking of the struggle of life in the world and how this dream is speaking to that, one thing we hadn't gotten into too much was that your brother was there, very specifically. You didn't leave him out. You brought him with you, even though maybe at the time you guys weren't close, and even today you aren't as close, perhaps. I don't know if thinking of him in the dream and his role and how it relates to him in real life, and specifically at the time, I don't know if any thoughts come to your mind.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, friendship is very important to me. There is this element.
I think your audio keeps cutting out. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yeah. When it comes through, I can hear you, but it just drops occasionally. I don't know what's going on, but please.
Okay.
Continue.
Well, my mic's right here, and I'm very much
moving around. It's okay.
If there was like, when they have the quick speed on the starfish, how they're moving. Well, I would be like, if you did that on me. Anyways.
Gotcha.
So, but friendship is very important to me. This element.
I lost you again. Your audio completely gone.
Well, I'm trying to find the words. Sorry. Oh, that's my fault.
No, that's okay. You were thinking. That's fine.
There's this idea of familiarity in us. In me, like my friends, I try to be very like, you're my friend. You're family to me.
Yeah.
And I always wanted that with my brother, but he was always off doing his own thing, right? Living his own story. And so my friends, well, now at the age of 31, I don't have as many friends, right? My friendship group is smaller, but tighter bond.
Oh yeah.
Whereas when I was in my 20s, and I was like the life of the party, I was always about the deep talking, like, yeah, man, like, I love you, all that stuff, all that BS. But those weren't my real friends, and now I've kind of weaned them out and weeded them down. And now I have really deep connections with people that are supporting me. And I guess I always wanted that. And this moment in this dream, I had that kind of shared purpose.
Yeah. He was with you shoulder to shoulder, kind of, again, that comforting wish fulfillment side of things. Like he was there because you wanted him there. Very much your brain was telling you this connection with your family. You wanted it stronger, so strong you could fight alien hordes or waves of killer robots together and win and have fun doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, but he didn't otherwise play a very profound role in the dream. Like, you don't remember him doing anything specific other than kind of being there and participating.
I think it was, and again, I'm sitting on this now.
Yeah.
I feel like how I recall it is there was nobody was more, because ego. I'm sure in my head I was the hero, but
oh yeah, we're all the hero of our own story.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But they all shared, like, nobody was inferior. You know what I mean? Like, nobody was a lesser character. Dad and my brother were equal in the story.
Yeah. And the way you described him too, and I think there might be a thread somewhere, whether we can tease it out or make sense of it or not, but the idea that these were, and we talked about them being machines, and we talked about him kind of being the computer guy, science nerd, that there may be some connection there too in terms of why this representation of this kind of enemy that needed a physical fight to kill it, but then also the say mechanical or computer, the sciencey enemy, sciencey team member. There might, I don't know, thinking of it from that angle, his role in the dream as the tech guy, and having the enemy be robots. I don't know if anything comes to mind.
He definitely, he loved computers, and one way that we bonded was playing video games.
Okay.
So I think that might be kind of,
that's a pretty good
connective tissue.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I was wondering if he did anything, like some specific behavioral thing in the dream related to using his persona as that tech guy in a specific way versus the enemy. Maybe not. I mean, maybe that wasn't as relevant, but there just seemed something there, a little flicker, a little candlelight in the darkness. I'm like, I don't know if that is, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? I don't know. maybe not.
I think there, again, it was, there's this element of, what does it all really come down to? At the end of the day, evolutionarily speaking, we are animals, and we've been a lot like one way for, the sort of primitivism, right? We were hunter-gatherers a lot longer than we've been strange intellectual
civilized,
digital consumers, right? The intellectual digital consumers. Going back to that, I joke about being pretentious, but then you have coronavirus happen, and we realize how vulnerable and weak we are.
Oh yeah,
we're fighting each other for toilet paper. Give me a break.
We like to think we are above nature, not just separate from it, but and coexisting with it, but like above it. And then we get COVID come around, and it's like, you're still human. You're still an animal. You still live in this world, and it's going to kill you probably, unless unless you're lucky. That's a wake up call for a lot of people. We have so much comfort. Yeah. We were hunter gatherers. It's almost like for 10,000 years, we're hunter gatherers, and now we are hunter gatherers in a technological age, and we don't know what the hell to do with ourselves. We're like, this is evolutionarily long-term thinking. What is it? It's like you're trying to teach your grandma how to use the iPhone, and she's like, I don't get it. I don't get any of this. That's us. That's the human race. Yes. We are old in that sense, and we're trying to learn this new technology that's changing so fast.
This Mass Effect, right? Have you ever heard of the video game Mass?
Yeah, I never got around to playing it, but
the definition is that you hit this moment, something happens, and then you hit singularity. That's Mass Effect, right?
Okay.
So you're going along, and then what was that movie, 2001: Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
The guy discovers the bone and starts using it as like a hammer, and then it's like, right? Like that was a singularity effect.
The discovery of tools, the concept of tools. Yeah.
And then every, like, I think it's like 3 stories in 2000 Space Odyssey. There's these moments, and I've never seen it, so this is hilarious explaining this film. But this is my understanding of my reading on it. But then they're in space, and they hit this singularity effect with AI, and it's like, right? And then, so Mass Effect is this moment that we hit, be it technological, intellectual, whatever, right? Like farming, agriculture, that was a Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah.
That was like a, all these moments. And where was I going?
And that brings to mind the concept of critical mass. You have to get to a certain it's what we refer to as the tipping point, and then the mass effect happens after that. In a sense, I don't know if I'm butchering this metaphor, the references to the game, but there's the reaching the point of critical mass, and then the effect of that tipping over into something else, and then it becomes something completely different. And it's very often change you can't undo, in the sense that even if we were able to say deindustrialize, even if we could go backwards, there's still the fact that we went this far, and that journey will still have an effect on us even if we take a step back. There's something in there.
Think about an egg, right? You crack the egg and then you cook the yolk. You cannot turn the cooked yolk back into what it was in the egg. Do you know what I mean? It's forever changed.
Yeah. There's an expression like, is that you can't uncook an egg, or you can't unscramble an egg? That's what it is.
Yes. Yeah, you can't. You can't. Like, once it's like literally from a scientific level, and here I am butchering this, but the proteins have forever been changed.
Yeah.
You cannot turn that back into yolk, into uncooked yolk.
That turns my mind to the concept of alchemy, and people thinking it's what am I trying to say about that? Like, cooking is alchemy, and cooking is literally science as we understand it. And actually, I got into in editing this most recent book. There's an old word, and I'm going to butcher it too, but I think in Latin it's sciens. C-I-E-N-S, and it is actually the root word of science. And what it means is like, it's the and I had the definition written down, but it's like the spark. So what it is when you say someone is performing science or is a scientist, it's someone who is looking for answers, someone who's trying to find, well, what's the spark? What's the alchemy to this situation, physically or metaphorically, that makes it change into something else, that understands the root. And once again, everyone out there listening, don't take my word for these. Go look it up yourself. But this is the best I could do with my own understanding of translating the enormous amount of Latin in this recent work, and getting into these roots and relying on Google and other better sources. But
this whole book that you're reading right now is in Latin.
Not the whole thing, no. But there was a tremendous amount of Latin referenced in it. So this was a public domain work, and it was by a preacher. So this is specifically a Christian perspective on dreams. What are good dreams? What dreams come from God or the devil? How to make the most of having a good dream? What to do with bad dreams in terms of motivating you to have a better life? How to properly understand them? Fascinating work from 1658, I think. And so it's brilliant experience. And a lot of, as I say in my author's note or editor's note, a lot of what we understand to be true today, he's got it in this sermon. It's basically wrote this sermon to people about dreams, and he's right. He's right about a lot of stuff. It's kind of amazing that no one's ever taken me better than a month to get this thing in any kind of presentable format. So no wonder no one wanted to put 12-hour days into that for a month straight. But I'm amazed more. This doesn't already have notoriety from someone who was in the past. I'm very pleased to hopefully my edition will be definitive and as accurate as I could possibly make it. Anyway, again, that's all on that tangent about where does the word science come from? How does it relate to alchemy and change and critical mass and tipping points? When does one thing become another? I live in my head this.
No, hey, dude, man, do not stop, because that's what it is, man. There's people that are changers, right? There's people that are they follow along, right? They go along to get along, but then there are changers, and I think that's why the internet is so amazing, is because the parallels between this and the printing press, huge, but it's the next. It is the next thing, because we're sharing ideas, and governments are trying to shut it, right? Like in India,
very much.
the president, president and prime minister, they've like shut down communication, but even still can't stop it, right?
Yeah. And as much as I waffle on that too, because, you look at, say, people being jerks on the internet, and it's like, yeah, that's bad. And I wish they wouldn't do that. Trolls. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of malicious stuff out there, and spam and people, just doing hurtful things on purpose. But and as much as we would want to control that to a degree, to discourage it, to minimize it, because we all agree certain things are just like, that's dumb, stop it. The other side of it is we don't want that control to bleed over into suppressing too much new ideas and strange ways of thinking. Because I mean, they almost put, or they did, what was it, Galileo, or I'm mixing up my historical figures, but the powers that be decided certain things the public was not allowed to know. The opinion of the world was not allowed to change from we are the center of the universe to we rotate around the sun. And I don't want the next discovery like that to be lost online because there's too many people being silenced in the name of silencing people we all think are assholes, and they are. There's no argument about that. It's just, how do you do that without breaking the good parts? That's tough. I don't have an answer to it, but
it's the baby in the bathwater.
Oh,
you know
for
what
sure.
I mean? Like,
yeah.
What's the line? And we have to be clear on it. And that's why, sensitivity is like, okay, so if you can't smoke or drink until you're 21, 18 or whatever, then the internet is like, the internet is not a place for, like, it's just, it's a very, what's the word? We're not dangerous.
Wild West comes to mind.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's the
untamed wilderness in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Like I don't think that, my daughter, she's going to get into social media at some point. It's like, I want to help her navigate that.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we have the greatest understanding of what dangers are out there in order to be able to help our children navigate it very well. But thinking about it is the first step. Like, okay,
and the effect
there are
on the
dangers.
Mind. And the effect of the mind, right? Like if like drinking when you're 10 years old, we know that does things to the brain.
Yeah.
It's
a rational concern to
I'm not die hard on that.
The internet?
I'm open.
No. I think it's a very rational connection to say, if some things we know have an effect because you're too young, are there other things that, and there's a lot of people, and even have some friends who are like, my kid didn't get a phone until they were 13 or 14. Like, just no, you don't live in that world. Now you're old enough, I can teach you how to handle a gun, get on social media, drive a car. There's developmental milestones you got to hit before you can. Otherwise, you're very vulnerable in the wilderness to predators, literally and figuratively. So
yes,
yeah. Well, I'm looking at the clock, and I want to be respectful of your time. We should probably maybe wrap this up, and we make sure to get in your links. And but I guess right at the very end, were there any elements of the dream that we didn't quite focus on enough to try and pull out some meaning? Or you feel like we did a pretty good job covering
honestly,
the bases?
This has been a very enriching conversation for me. I want to thank the listeners. Hopefully they get something out of it. But I know I did. So, even though we were going like all over the place, that's my fault. That's just what I do.
Oh, me too. I just went with you.
But I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you being here. And we'll just say that by way of wrapping up. We've got here our friend Robert Grant. And again, the links in the description below. I'll put all this information there. But anyone listening, say on the podcast, at Probably Wrong About Everything on Instagram. We've got I'm Probably Wrong About Everything on iTunes, Spotify. We've got probablywrong.ca, and of course on Patreon. And I just want to thank our friend Robert for taking us on another fantastic journey into the sleeping mind of man. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, and hey, thank you all for joining us. Check out the links below, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And that's it for this episode of Dreamscapes. Thanks for listening.